Welcome to Straight Talk. How are you today, Mr. Harris?
I am fabulous today, Mr. Solomon. Happy Friday to you.
It is a Friday indeed. I can tell because even on my way here, which was rather early,
Yes, I noted that.
there was already some traffic on the road.
That's right.
Everybody's leaving work early, maybe hitting the watering hole. Who knows?
Who knows? Well, hopefully they have their ears on in between because we have quite the
A
fantastic
lineup, right?
lineup planned for this evening's discussion, including some breaking news, which, again, as we say, you heard it here first on Straight Talk coming up this evening. But with your permission, let's go through the usual formalities, shall we?
Yes.
Good evening and welcome to our listening audience, and happy Friday to you. Welcome to Straight Talk, broadcasting live on Bobo 103.1 FM and simulcasting live over YouTube and Facebook with the key search words Straight Talk Radio Show. We are also streaming live on the ACT Cruise Tourism Facebook page as well. The phone lines will be open now all the way until 6:30 this evening. The number to call, 745-2626 is the number, or you can take advantage of our version of the 1-800 number. That is by reaching out on our WhatsApp line, 928-2562. And from there, you can either share with us a WhatsApp audio note or a traditional WhatsApp text message. In either any event, we will share your views and comments live on the air as we receive them. As we state always, the identities of our contributors on WhatsApp will remain anonymous unless otherwise stipulated by the writer. And last but certainly not least, you can also reach us on email by emailing host@straighttalk.ky. Before we get on to the good news, there's a number of little items. One of them, of course, includes the weather. How was your day?
Boy, it was really good. You know, I took a trip early this morning, went out east to do a little bit of work. You know, get
rain up that
get
side
something
today?
done before midday-ish. And so I can tell you that on the trip last night, it was definitely rained. And then this morning I had a nice overcast, so it was pretty good.
Very
And I'm
good.
here praying and saying, I sound like Austin, but I'm praying for an overcast again tomorrow.
Attaboy, attaboy.
Not rain now, just a little overcast.
The more prayers lifted up, the better. And certainly today was one of those days. Not only did I notice it, but one or two folks that I came into direct contact with, as a matter of fact, as if they were reading my mind, they said, I'm loving this weather. Who's can complain about today's breeze, today's overcast skies, no beating down sun?
Maybe it's the fact that anyone that listens to us probably just says, you know, Austin's a weather guy.
Well,
So
also
if we see
weather guy,
if we see him, just tell him, you know, like, you know, something about the weather. Like, oh, it's a cold front coming in. Just get him excited.
Oh, yes, absolutely. That always makes my entire day, if not weekend. And yes, any day that is not surface of the sun scorching hot, I will be glad. But above all, particularly during this time of year, anything that doesn't say hurricane on the forecast is a
So, I mean, I don't want to get into your home life. So, but does this kind of like, you know, intimate that you are a guy that's sleeping right under the fan in the AC or something?
Why would you think that? Why would you go there?
I have no idea.
Profiling is wrong. Did anyone tell you that?
I'm just thinking.
But
Overcast, love the cold fronts. I don't know. I'm just a hint.
Yes, if you really must know to both questions.
For all those people who wants to get in Austin's house, and in particular his bedroom, there you go.
That's right.
Transparency, I tell you.
What is the point of a duvet cover if it's not cold in the bedroom? At home it's sub-zero temperatures, in particular when I sleep, and I find that because, I mean, we've said this before, and I think it's a byproduct of perhaps being in an office. Maybe you experienced it as well, but I have trouble sleeping. And for the first, obviously the 4 years that I spent in office, my awake schedule was so robust that the sleep schedule suffered. And since then, I really struggle to sleep at night. I have problems maybe shutting down my brain. But also on the reverse side, for a number of years, obviously we did the morning talk show that started at 7 a.m. So we'd get up and be at work by 5:30 every single day. So now from those days, going back to early 2000s, my body clock, natural alarm clock, wakes me up at 5 o'clock, whether I want to get up or not.
Yeah.
So Yeah, maybe that's too much information into my personal life, which, perhaps I don't always like to brag about. But the truth is the truth, since you asked.
No, we all appreciate what you're saying.
Yeah.
Much appreciated.
How about you? Do you sleep like a baby at night?
I I tend to like to get to bed, and try to be to sleep around 9 or 10 latest.
Okay. Yeah.
And then normally that works, and probably about 3 o'clock I'm starting to get up, and if I force myself, I can stay in there till about 4:30, 5 o'clock.
Yeah. I'm with you there. My average, really, whether it be getting old or just, having greater responsibilities or whatever, but I try to go to sleep by 10 o'clock every night. Whether I actually sleep at 10 o'clock is another question altogether, because there have been times that you just literally lie in bed till midnight counting sheep and everything else, and nothing works, Thank God for YouTube. That's all I can tell you. And then, again, on a good night, I can sleep 7 hours, but on an average night, it's a sleep, wake up every 3-4 hours and whatnot. So it sucks to get old. I don't know what I can tell you to add to it.
Sometimes you have those nights that you just, you get 2 hours, get up 2 hours,
Yeah.
I don't know, the saw ritual.
But I am reducing my coffee intake. Of course, I'm having
coffee God,
today,
if I drink coffee, forget it.
I'm trying to reduce that, because I do drink a lot of coffee during the day, and I try to cut it off at 12 o'clock in the afternoon, so that, again, give the body time to adjust and get ready for bedtime. Plus, I've, adopted some of your otherwise home natural organic remedies, including the teas, as well as, again, the right sort of diet, et cetera, et cetera. And now that, of course, you've got me back in radio, and in particular in front of a camera, obviously diet is a big part of my agenda. So, again,
good.
The Ellio Solomon influence in my life, whether you, know it or not, is so.
It's a positive thing, right?
It's a very positive thing.
Perfect.
I haven't quite gotten to the stage, I call it my graduation stage, where I'll fix me up a nice, warm, piping hot cup of onion tea. I'm not there yet, but I do garlic, a little bit of honey, particularly during the flu season, So again,
garlic is good every day.
This is all your influence in my life. I just thought I'd share that openly.
Garlic is good for you every day. I could talk about that for quite a while, but we won't.
We won't. There you go. Well, let's talk about something else. Let's talk about the weather, as we started on that subject, because it is the first bit of good news for the day before we hit on some of our main topics. Taking a look at your forecast for the Cayman Islands both tonight and into the weekend, a ridge of high pressure dominates the weather pattern across the Northwest Caribbean. This, of course, coming from the Cayman Islands National Weather Service. This will result in moderate winds and moderate to rough seas into tonight. An intermix of cloudy skies and our favorite Saharan dust is expected during the next 24 hours. Meanwhile, radar images show no showers in and around the Cayman area. There is, in fact, a system, however, according to the National the National Hurricane Center, NOAA, that highlights a system of disturbance to the south of us in the area of the Yucatan Peninsula towards the Bay of Campeche. This is a weather system that's likely to impact places like Mexico and Belize over the weekend, Guatemala as well. Right now, there's a 30% chance of cyclone formation over the next 7 days, but it is a broad area of disturbance. I don't know how far that disturbance is going to stretch in terms of sending rain clouds our way. Maybe we would get some rain over the weekend. The National Weather Service doesn't seem to think so. So maybe the fact that they said no rain over the weekend is maybe why we should expect rain. I don't know. But again, there's a big maybe. But again, according to the National Hurricane Center in Miami, Florida, there is a 30% chance of cyclone formation and could become the second named storm of the 2025 Hurricane Atlantic season. But again, it's got to go over land first, so it's going to weaken. No chance of development over the next 24 to 48 hours. Maybe as it passes into the Yucatan Peninsula or the Gulf of America, it might develop into something, but at the moment, nothing. From our standpoint, just some more cloudiness, overcast skies, maybe some rain over the weekend, but I'm sure there will be sunshine moments because, well, the sun at the summertime loves to make an appearance, so we can maybe see it. But hopefully it should be a beautiful weekend weather-wise. If you are a sun seeker and worship the sun and hate the overcast weekends or days, well, you may want to take a Valium or something because it might not be your weekend. Just saying. So that's from the weather
So I just
side.
want to know, am I going to get forecast tomorrow or on Sunday?
Tomorrow? Well, no, we're not on the air. It's Saturday and Sunday.
No,
so
I mean my construction work. I'm just wanting to hear from you straight up.
Well,
Am I going to get a forecast?
I just told you what you could possibly expect. Either the existing overcast skies, the National Weather Forecast does not forecast any showers presently. Maybe that will extend to the weekend. But largely, if there are showers, it will largely develop on what happens with the system that is beneath us.
So, abracadabra, I will have overcast tomorrow.
Dude, it's the weather, especially it's tropical weather. It can change at the
Can't pin a weatherman down.
No, you can't.
What's the percentage chance today?
Dude, well, the cyclone development, 30%. As far as local weather is concerned, again, we refer to the Cayman Islands National Weather Service, 20% chance of showers tonight, 30% chance of showers tomorrow. I think that's what you're missing.
Oh, Lord.
Mostly cloudy and hazy tomorrow, 30%
Well, I can tell you,
chance of showers.
the last time you said 30% chance of showers, it rained.
Okay. Well, certainly the last 2 days has been a 40% chance of shower, and it definitely rained. So maybe, if we play the percentages, look for rain.
All right.
And also, to your point, earlier on in the week, that rain has gone as far as East End. So let's hope so, because if it's raining in East End,
I just wanted to.
you can guarantee
I just
you
wanted
get
to
some rain the
overcast.
rest of Cayman. That's just a tip. That's all I can tell you.
Yeah, that is a tip.
Yeah, it is. Just one more tidbit in the good news category as we roll over to 45 minutes past the hour of 4 o'clock. Earlier this month, the latest cohort of 12 local micro and small business owners graduated from Phase 1 of the Cayman Islands Center for Business Development's Business Growth Incubator Program. This year marked the fourth such cohort of participants in the program, with a total of some 73 micro and small businesses spread across these lovely Cayman Islands, gaining support from this program for their businesses, tips and ideas on how to grow their business, tips and ideas on how to manage, again, the small things, payroll, inventory, staffing if necessary, etc. It really is a fantastic program. It has been ongoing for some time. But again, we want to congratulate those 12 micro and small businesses who recently graduated. The Cayman Islands Center for Business Development will have a number of additional programs planned for this summer. Just yesterday, they hosted the Raising Capital Financial Forum, designed to demystify funding, content entrepreneurs, or connect entrepreneurs to capital sources, I guess introduce them to banks, and provide clarity on terms of what attracts investors. And again, I thought that would have been rather insightful, because certainly investors, another big word for consumers, those persons with the money wanting to buy your product. So again, all services and learning opportunities that certainly benefit micro and small businesses. We want to congratulate and applaud these efforts. Looking forward in the calendar, of course, Tuesday will be July already. Talk about the year moving swiftly along. Between the 14th and 18th of July, there will be a teenpreneurship. So talk about a play on words. A teenpreneurship summer camp aimed at aspiring entrepreneurs aged 14 and 17. This will be a free initiative and runs from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the Business Development Center's office located in Baytown Plaza. At the graduation earlier this month, Premier Andre Ebanks provided a written message for the graduation program to applaud the graduates for completing Phase 1, which consists of a 12-week program while still running their business. The Honorable Premier is quoted as stating, and I quote, "This was no small feat, and yet it was worthwhile because of the practical, immediately applicable knowledge you've gained." He added that the experience also was intended to boost their confidence, to strengthen and expand their business as the local economy evolves in response to the local and global development. So again, I just want to say a big congratulations, first and foremost, to the 12 micro and small business owners who have availed themselves of the available resources made available by the government, and certainly to the wider 73 micro and small businesses who have gone through the program thus far. And likewise, continue to thank and congratulate the Cayman Islands Center for Business Development for providing these incubator programs, which again helps our local economy. All very positive news to, I think, start our program for this Friday. 48 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock. Anything you want to add before I jump right back in again and just
in my 2-minute time slot?
Well, see, that's why I say 48. You know, you have literally 10 minutes now before the next break.
No, I'm fine. I mean, we're just in that good news category, so I'm quite fine.
Wonderful. Well, the next bit of good news may be taken as good news for some, and perhaps not so welcome news for others, and that might include at least 50% of us here in studios. My dear friend, you will recall about 10 days ago, I think it was the Honorable Minister of Labor, Honorable Michael Miles, announcing that the government would not be moving forward with the proposed introduction of minimum wage for a variety of reasons. Certainly defending his position 10 days ago, the government didn't believe it was effective and certainly did not agree that it should otherwise be introduced, whether it be to the tourism worker sector specifically or the wider, business community or the wider community. But as Parliament continues again today, obviously yesterday we talked at great length about what was Opposition Day, went through some of the question and answers, and we also learned of something rather surprising, which we're going to touch on at 5 o'clock tonight, also involving the Honorable Minister Michael Miles. But today, again in the Q&A session of Parliament, in a question put to the government by the Honorable Deputy Leader of the Opposition, the Honorable Kenneth Bryan, when asking a question about the introduction of minimum wage, seemed to, and again, I haven't listened in great detail, but certainly probably on Monday, we will certainly have the opportunity to share the clip with our listening audience so they can be fully aware. But he asked the question, rather poignant question, to the Minister, Michael Miles, on minimum wage. And as a result of the thrust and throw of politics and the debate, fundamentally, Michael Miles reversed his position, shall I say, on minimum wage, committing the government to now introducing minimum wage across the board effective January 1st, 2026. So that is breaking good news here. You heard it first on Straight Talk. 10 days ago, the government had no interest in minimum wage. Something went down in Parliament today, and the government did a about-face, 180-degree turn, and will, in fact, commit to introducing minimum wage across the board in the Cayman Islands effective the 1st of January, 2026. Ellio, I know you were not necessarily a big supporter of minimum wage. You certainly, when we talked about it, had a lot to say on the subject. Now the government has awfully, made a decision, which again, really, in 10 days, it's, one direction and then the next direction. I don't know if it's a sign of things to come.
Well, I mean,
decision, I don't know.
I definitely think that Mr. Miles is working and making some headlines. In fact, I'm just reading here that he actually goes on to say something to the effect that we're always going to have a rise of cost of living, regardless if we have a minimum wage increase or not, he stated. The economy is going to do whatever the economy is going to do. Our responsibility now is to protect our people and to ensure that they're being paid at least appropriately. I have expressed, I'm not a big fan about the minimum wage. I think it's one of those, again, putting it nicely, one of those mental massage things that we do, because bottom line is you have to find a proper way to bring down the cost of living. All you're going to continue to do is increase the price, the salaries, and then the salaries are going to go out and other companies are going to be increasing the cost. And bottom line is within a year or so, you're just going to be in a higher inflationary position than you were before. I mean, we can look at 6 for that. Now they're going to almost, what was that? It increased by about 50%, almost to $9. That's my personal position. And again, for what it's worth, went off. And I know when we had this discussion the last time, went off and found a few melanin impoverished, economists that stated the same thing. If we need to look that up, we can. But I think generally speaking, generally speaking, that is, I appreciate that in Cayman, sometimes if you're not wearing a tie or something, or coming off of a boat somewhere, that those opinions aren't going to be appreciated. But I can tell you that it's going to just create more and more inflation. I'm surprised that the government is saying that. Now, if I recall correctly, in fairness to the government, I was just doing some research on the compass, and it seems like it was more of a statement of not necessarily that we're not going to do it, but they were still kind of in the bushes as to having to read the thick report that was the size of a book.
Oh, yes, that's right.
It was the size
too
of
much reading. It intimidated the young minister.
It was a big book, and he wasn't quite sure at the time.
What was it, 154 pages?
Yes.
Bedtime reading, my friend.
No pictures.
No pictures. Yeah, maybe that might be a challenge.
Yeah, but
yeah, a big part of a politician's job, particularly a minister's job, is going to be reading.
Yeah.
Get used to it.
Get a fresh pair of glasses.
I'll tell you that.
But yeah, so it was a case of not 100% sure what they were going to do. Had to finish the book. So in fairness to not necessarily 100% misaligned. But again, I'm surprised because you'll remember at the same time, just so we can get clarity. You remember when they were making the statement that sounded like they wasn't very in favor of it,
Yes.
wasn't keen about it.
Yes.
I was giving the government accolades. Am I correct?
You were.
I was.
You were
Okay.
indeed.
And in the same
People
way,
accused us of being on this honeymoon with them.
yes, and I can just say to you that I don't agree with the minimum wage. And the worst part is that I'm not impressed with that leadership position because he's saying, well, yeah, I know it's going to have inflation. I know it's going to hurt a lot of business people, but we got to do this X, Y, and Z to protect the persons. And I really want to see the government, and I was expecting the government to really take the bull by the horns and say, we're going to get out and we're going to really try to make sure that we can lower the cost of living. Because I honestly believe that's the solution. These are silver bullets. It doesn't work, right? And we can get as much economists on here as we want, but the evidence is there. Bottom line is the majority of businesses in this country and around the world, labor is a major component. You see, for example, again, let's look at the banks. We talked about lowering, let's say, electricity. If you look at the bank, I doubt there's anyone making less than $8.75. Okay, I seriously doubt it. So you're not going to impact them. Really, going to impact is all these small businesses. Mm-hmm. The guy with a little construction company, not me. The guy with a jerk chicken place, not me. And all of these people, and
Profiling is still wrong.
And all I'm going to say to you is, very simple. If your roofing job was $3,000 before, a simple roof and an over container, $3,000. I'm just going to assure you, before the year is out, or at the end of the day, with the implementation of the minimum wage, it's not going to be $3,000 anymore. Okay, it's just that simple. The businesses are going to pass it on. People are already hurting, and they can't afford to be eating anything more. So to Mr. Michael Miles and the government, I am disappointed to see that they're actually going forward with it, although I'm pretty sure there's at least 2,000 people somewhere getting all the immediate gratification in the world are very appreciative of it. But it won't last very long. In fact, you're only getting yourself in deeper poop. That's my opinion on it.
Well, I thank you for that opinion, Mr. Solomon. And again, I'm sure there are at least a percentage of persons in the local community that agree with you. Maybe 73 of them from these micro and small businesses that we were talking about earlier on that took part in their development business incubator program. But I think you make a solid case for some of the threats of minimum wage. But likewise, on the other side, there is the positive for some of those persons that will be positively impacted.
What I hope
on the lower end of the salary scale, and I'm sure they are now a bit more optimistic about their futures. But again, they have to wait until next year to do so. And I would just say to you, if you are disappointed in Mr. Michael Miles' performance thus far in minimum wage, well, what we're going to talk about when we come back at 5 o'clock is only going to to it.
We touched on that one from yesterday, but what I would like for them to be reconsidering and changing their mind about is about crews. There's something that, again, thousands of people are going to be impacted, but I see that the government has not even taken the time out to attend the FCCA a couple of weeks ago or days ago. And that is not promising.
It's not.
And I don't understand how you can even lend the impression that you're totally disregarding that an entire industry, right? And of course, it is to the point that we're going to get at after the break, as we discussed at the tail end of the program yesterday on this whole issue of the cleanup. Again, major disappointment right there.
Well, to the point of the cruise port, I mean, I think once the government starts to feel the financial pinch of the consequences of saying no and choosing not to pursue, whether it be berthing or expanding cruise business in general, seeming to take the I don't care position, I think when the reality hits in, maybe they'll have an about face. But certainly also in Parliament today, the debate raged about government's poor financial fiscal position and the potential financial crisis that is looming. That too will obviously be negatively impacted by obviously a loss in cruise tourism, as we talked about. 500 million in revenue down to less, a problem. Keep it locked. There'll be more Straight Talk now.
Bobo. How can we understand the world better?
The BBC World Service is a window onto the wider world.
The vantage point from which to survey a new horizon.
News, reports, and analysis from around the world. Stories we think matter.
Different people from different societies.
We get to the heart of global issues.
News, stories, and global perspectives from the BBC World Service.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM. The BBC is the world's most trusted news source. And Bobo 103.1 is where you'll find the BBC World Service.
BBC News, the world news from the BBC.
And the home of Cayman's most listened to top shows.
That's right, folks. Everyone is telling their mama about the cold hard truth.
And welcome to Straight Talk. I'm your host, Austin Harris.
And I'm Ellio Solomon.
Across Cayman, on FM, online, and on your smart speaker. This is Bobo 103.1.
Welcome to our newsroom here in central London. We place ourselves here at a little desk right in the thick of things.
OS from the BBC.
We can catch the very latest news from our colleagues, not just in this enormous room, but also from our colleagues around the world.
I'm in the room where they're treating children.
This is a combat zone.
The situation after the typhoon is very complicated.
It was a very tense situation.
OS from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM. This is Bobo 103.1, powered by Health Services Authority. At Health Services Authority, they are committed to caring for you. They are Cayman's largest and longest-standing healthcare provider, offering the most comprehensive range of inpatient, outpatient, and public health services at 9 different locations across all 3 islands. Across Cayman on 103.1 FM, online, and on your smart speaker. The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo 103.1.
BBC News, I'm John Shea. The foreign ministers of the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda have signed a peace deal that's seen as a first step towards ending a conflict which has simmered for 30 years. The agreement, brokered by the US and Qatar, comes after the Rwandan-backed M23 rebels seized swathes of eastern Congo. Therese Kayakwamba-Wagner is the DRC's foreign minister.
By signing this agreement, we reaffirm a simple truth. Peace is a choice, but also a responsibility. To respect international law, to uphold human rights, and to protect the sovereignty of states. Those who have suffered the most are watching. They are expecting this agreement to be respected, and we cannot fail them.
Dozens of armed groups are fighting for control of Congo's mineral riches. One, Codeco, attacked a displaced persons camp in Ituri province hours before the signing of the deal, killing 10 people. President Trump says he's breaking off trade negotiations with Canada immediately. He's blamed the collapse of talks on Canada's digital service tax, which targets big tech companies. The Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney said his government would continue to conduct trade negotiations in the best interests of its citizens. John Donnison reports from Washington.
President Trump said he was terminating all discussions on trade with Canada immediately. He described his northern neighbour as a very difficult country to trade with. He said the digital services tax on US technology companies was egregious and a direct and blatant attack on his country. It's the latest shot to be fired in a series of trade wars that America is now fighting with countries around the world, after the president made tariffs a central part of his economic strategy.
In a highly significant ruling, the US Supreme Court has curbed the power of federal judges to block presidential orders nationwide. The case stems from President Trump's bid to end birthright citizenship for the children of undocumented immigrants. Gary O'Donoghue has more details.
Well, this is undoubtedly a big win for the president. The challenges to these specific policies will still proceed through the courts, and the merits and constitutionality of each case is a separate question to what's been decided today. In truth, this is an issue that administrations of both complexions have complained about. So expect Republicans to see this as a double-edged sword. When and if a Democrat enters the White House, he or she will enjoy the same legal advantages as Donald Trump will now make the most of.
Israel's Prime Minister has rejected an Israeli newspaper report in which soldiers say they were ordered to shoot at unarmed civilians waiting for food aid in Gaza. Benjamin Netanyahu said the Haaretz newspaper had committed blood libel against the most moral military in the world. This is the latest world news from the BBC. US stocks have surged to record highs, capping a dramatic rebound from steep losses following President Trump's tariff threats in April. The S&P 500 closed up 0.5%, despite the suspension of trade talks with Canada. The Nasdaq also hit a new peak. Investors were encouraged by strong corporate earnings, easing recession fears, and hopes that the Federal Reserve may cut borrowing costs. The head of the World Health Organization says China still hasn't provided the information necessary to establish the origin of the COVID pandemic. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus said this included viral sequences from early patients and information on work and biosafety at laboratories in Wuhan, where the first cases were detected. Here's Mickey Bristow.
The WHO has said a number of countries haven't cooperated, including the United States, with providing raw information. But really, it's focused primarily on China and the data that it hasn't supplied. Just a few months ago, the Chinese government issued a report on its thoughts about the origins of COVID. It said that it believed that the investigation into the origins was over, and it believes that COVID came to China through frozen goods from outside the country.
The Anglican Archbishop of Wales has announced his retirement with immediate effect. The decision by Andrew John, who's also Bishop of Bangor, follows reports that the culture at Bangor Cathedral in North Wales was one of blurred sexual boundaries, excessive alcohol consumption and weaknesses in safeguarding procedures. There's no suggestion that the Archbishop himself behaved inappropriately. The Amazon founder Jeff Bezos has married Lauren Sanchez on the second day of their wedding festivities in Venice. The marriage took place in a vast open-air amphitheatre on the island of San Giorgio Maggiore. The A-list guests are shielded from protesters who accused the city authorities of handing Venice over to the billionaire. BBC News.
Opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo 103.1.
And welcome back, man, to more Straight Talk on this beautiful Friday evening. We're your host, Ellio Solomon, myself, Austin Harris, and the phone lines are open now at 7 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock in the studios. The number to call, 745-2626 is the number, or you can reach out to us on our WhatsApp number, 928-2562. Or if email is your thing, you can write us an email to host@straighttalk.ky. Prior to the break, we were sharing a bit of breaking news hot off the Parliament floor. The decision 10 days ago to reject the minimum wage recommendation and or its introduction for the Cayman Islands was the position of the government, give or take 10 days ago. But today, following a little bit of Q&A pressure from the opposition, in particular, the Deputy Leader of the Opposition, the Honourable Kenneth Bryan, the government now has made a commitment to introduce minimum wage come the 1st of January. And again, my colleague has a lot of thoughts on this subject, and I want to give him the opportunity to, as we say, ventilate those viewpoints. Ellio.
Yeah, Mr. Harris, thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. I just want to spell this out, right, a little bit more. And Peter, I didn't know we were going to be talking about this, or I would have done my math. But
good thing you're good on the fly.
I'm pretty decent on the fly. But let me just try to say to you, and I mentioned this before, minimum wage doesn't work. Okay? This is my humble opinion. Minimum wage doesn't work. And I'll also be an expert and throw that the income tax and all that stuff doesn't work either. If it was, all the people, all the countries that have minimum wage, they wouldn't be here. Okay? Honduras, Philippines, United States, Canada, UK, they wouldn't be here because minimum wage would be working. Income tax would be working. All these things would be working, and they wouldn't be here in the Cayman Islands trying to get a better life. Okay? That's one immediate piece of evidence that you can hold on to. Let's be clear about this. With this minimum wage, it would mean that the average person who now gets $6 an hour, and if I go based on the number, I think that at least one of our callers mentioned, 2,000 persons need this. That means they're going to get an increase of $495 for the month. That's what we're working for. This is what the minister is saying is absolutely crucial, that these persons make this $495. But let me just give you again the business model, whether it's the person with the jerk chicken, whether it's the construction company, because bear in mind, it is especially smaller businesses. And who are smaller businesses? Are smaller businesses rich people? Is these the people that are making, millions of dollars every year that have a small business? I don't think so. Small businesses are people, by the way, like you and I, Austin. Mm-hmm. And luckily, we don't necessarily have to pay ourselves. So small businesses is a little guy, the same little guy that's trying to start a business because he doesn't want to go to NAU. He doesn't want a handout. He wants to be able to have a business, to be able to say, I want to do something for myself. I want to earn a living. I want to have my integrity. And so he goes out, he hires one employee, and God forbid, if God really blesses him, he gets two. And now what you're saying is the guy must pay an additional $1,000 a month now for these two workers. Okay, so that they can be happy. And that's fine. But let's understand. If it's the jerk chicken guy and he has to increase his expenses by $1,000 a month, I want everyone listening to me to understand your jerk chicken is not going to have the same price. He's going to increase his price for the chicken. The guy who is doing your roof, laying your tiles, your plumbing, your electrical, whatever, all of these people are going to increase their price because you've just increased their price by at least $1,000 a month. And so basically, you're going to end up that if you take 2,000 persons and you're multiplying it by 495, call it 500, you're increasing the total aggregate wage of 2,000 people by a total of $990,000. And to make 2,000 people aggregate make $990,000 more for the year, you're going to increase the cost of living for everyone in this country by the millions. It's not going to be the same. It doesn't increase inflation by $990,000. No, it increases it in a same aggregate exponential sort of way. And the minister is acknowledging this. This is the worst part. The minister is acknowledging that according to him, from what I'm reading, him and his government knows what it's going to do. But it has to be done. No, what has to be done is get up off of our asses and fix the problem. Okay? So if I have a company, and let's go back, ladies and gentlemen, to again, whatever example, construction company, whatever. What do? We have to go out and say, is there a way for me to lower my electricity? You know what? I got my apartment. Here's what I can do. Even if I don't have control over CUC, but I can utilize propane. Let me just go get a tank of propane and hook up my stove. I can get off of this electrical stove. And, oh, my God, they've got dryers now on propane, too. Those are things that will solve your problem in your home. And it is similar things the government has to do. Lower the cost of electricity. Lower the cost of gas. Lower these things and let that go out. And now if you want to find a way to say, I'm lowering the cost for you, the business owner, and I'm going to cap you, I'm going to put a ceiling now to make sure that you got to go down or you're definitely not going up. You got to pass these savings on. Then that's fine. But this is the real solution. And I'm just tired of hearing about the silver bullets, because the only thing silver bullets kill, as far as I know, are vampires, okay? It doesn't solve the problems in the economy. And I mentioned this the first time it was going to be implemented, that all you're going to get is every election year, it's going to be the same nonsense with some politician who's keeping themselves in office by promising the general public the magic Kool-Aid, the heroin of all things, the little bit of minimum wage. The guy that gets an additional 495% or $495 increase, by the time he or she goes out and starts buying a little bit more jerk chicken and now calls the guy to come and do some tiling, some plumbing, some electrical work, it's gone. Quick o'clock, it gone. I have lived a life, and I share my experience for what it's worth. You can discard it, but all I can tell you, when I get to a crossroad and I say, Ellio, which way do you have to go? Normally, I can tell you. I say, Ellio, which one's the easiest? That one? Well, go to the next road. Normally, if it's easy, it's not a right road. Mm-hmm. Okay? It's normally the hard, difficult road that is the road to take. Okay? And you can take that suggestion or you can discard it. It really doesn't matter to me. But I can tell you, normally the one that requires the hard work is the right one. You hear people coming to you on Facebook, oh, you want to make $1,000, you can make $1,000 in one night. Or I can trust you. Trust me. It's pretty much most likely it's a scam. But if somebody comes and say, come put in a good hard day's work and you can make some money, guarantee you'll probably make it. Take the difficult route, but that is the one that is really going to be a solution for our people. And I'm just tired. I don't even want to hear somebody referring to these people as leaders. That is not leadership. Leadership is about not worrying about your seat. It's about doing the right thing. You know what it is? Leaders do the right thing. Managers do things right. Make the right decision on behalf of your people. So if you know it's not the solution, then don't go forward with it. I'll yield.
All right. Well, certainly, first of all, as always, I want to thank you for those, for your viewpoint, impassioned, because I believe this is what you truly do believe. And obviously, you're committed to and very passionate about the things that you feel strongly on. And I think a wide sector of our audiences probably are agreeing with you, if not clapping their hands. But I do believe I have an obligation to show the other side of the coin. And I won't introduce anything new, because these are things that we certainly talked about the last time we had this discussion. But I will, I guess, concede the point that the impact of minimum wage on local economies, not just ours, but across the globe, is a complex issue and arguably even hotly debated. So it's not just us in Cayman, not just Ellio and I having this debate, if you will. It is arguably debated the world over for perhaps many of the reasons my colleague just outlined. But there is a flip side. And as I've stated before, for some, the introduction of minimum wage can lift some families out of poverty and reduce the income inequality that exists across our economy as it does the rest of the world. And in return, again, for a sector, and again, in our case, that includes some Caymanians, but largely the lower income work permit earners, the foreign workers, it can create a more stable and robust economy. From the standpoint of the individual business side, I agree with you 1,000%. Obviously, the harder, but without a doubt, the more impactful road in which to take is to bring down the cost of living. And that has the greater, if not greatest benefit. And in Cayman, we look at things like the cost of fuel, which is tied to the cost of fuel, the cost of gasoline and diesel, which of course is tied to our utility costs, as well as costs at the pumps, but also the cost of items on the shelves, particularly items that need refrigeration, the staples like we need, milk and eggs and the like. All of those things obviously contribute to the cost of living, and a much more difficult measure of trying to bring it down. But to your point, certainly a much more meaningful, if not lasting, approach. But from a business standpoint, I think all will agree, and I know there have been a few studies done at various universities, including Harvard, if that makes a difference, that suggests, but I think common sense just tells you that when a worker earns a fair wage, they are more motivated and more productive. And in so doing, that is a good thing for businesses. When you have also a more motivated and productive workforce, then you also have less turnover, which is also a major cost to employers because, again, you lose the staff, they stick around for a week or they stick around for 3 months. You invest time and money and training and assets, and they turn around and leave you. You got to start all over again, and that really is where you say, you know, your gears are stuck in reverse. You can either go forward because you're always there spinning your wheels. So for a sector in our community, minimum wage is an uplift and means something.
What do you think that sector is?
The little man, the small man, the guy on the grind.
Who's that little man?
Well, I think, first of all, of those Caymanians who are pumping gas, for example, and they have no other job. That's a minimum wage job, and this would be an uplift for those persons. I think of the Caymanian working in the kitchen, dishwashers and like. I think about those Caymanians working in housekeeping in the hotels, albeit they're earning the added benefit of gratuities, which, of course, increasing because they're earning minimum wage jobs. The hotels will tell you they pay you a base at minimum wage. Okay. So if that minimum wage increases plus gratuities, again, those housekeepers are benefiting from that uplift. And therefore, while small, and this is where you see, I too am passionate about this because I spent 4 years of my political life being responsible or shared responsibility for things like the Needs Assessment Unit, which became, I guess, financial assistance, or I think I heard the minister call it DIFEC or something. We'll talk about that a bit later on. But this is where my heart bleeds the most because I have seen firsthand the number of Caymanians in particular who are on the hustle, who are on the grind, who are under pressure. And it starts with fair wages. The second step is, of course, access to gainful and fair employment. And, of course, it ends usually with their ability to maintain and keep that employment. And all of it starts with, well, what are you paying? If you pay me something fair, then maybe I'll stay. Maybe I'll feel like I'm a part of the team. Maybe I can afford to, put some food on the table, if not, keep the lights on. It is not, minimum wage is not going to get you rich. You're not going to take you to the middle class level. But for some people, and again, I'm talking about the small man, the guy that on the hustle, the guy that's on the grind, the guy that's feeling the pressures of life. Yes, they are glad for a little uplift in minimum wage, and that helps them. And you can't tell me otherwise.
Mr. Harris, I can tell you otherwise, and I appreciate you taking the other side of the argument. It's a good discussion. So let's continue it. If you have 2,000 Caymanians, which is the number that I heard, 2,000 Caymanians that are getting this $6 and that we're really doing it for them. First of all, we're using a big, huge hammer to try to crack the nut, okay? Because if there's 2,000 of them, there's 10,000 other people on minimum wage over here, but they're not Caymanians. They're foreign nationals. Yeah. And I can guarantee you, those 10,000 people that are foreign nationals, when they get to pay from $6 to $8.75, that ain't staying here.
No, I
not the heck going home.
I accept that.
And I've said this before, and I know I'm not here to knock any nationality, but let's be clear. I had a Filipino lady that worked for me. She said, Ellio, I made 8,000 pesos in a month back home. Okay? The absolute minimum I would have been paying her would have been 60 to 70,000 pesos here. Of course, she's staying with me. She got food free, electricity free, water free, everything free. And you're making 70,000 pesos. Keep it simple. Make it 56. 7 times your pay. I'm telling you right now, if you could give me, and I said this before on the radio, if you could give me the politician's salary, the $5,000 salary, the $4,000 salary, whatever it is, if I could make 7 times that amount in America right now, I'd probably go there and sleep under a bridge. So you're going to tell me that we're going to increase the wages for 10,000 people over here, which by the same extension is going to increase cost of living on all the thousands of businesses, the 8,200 businesses that are arguably employing them, in order to make these guys get $495 more, which really amounts to you saying, here's $495 more. Oh, sorry, but I need $30 back more for the rent, and I'll need an extra $30 for the electricity, and I'll need an extra $30 for the food, and I need an extra $30 for the water. It looks like you're probably only about $25 up. I apologize. It's nonsense. And it's filled with glittering generalities that politicians make about how they're working for the little man and how they're starving in the streets and how I'm going to make the world a better place. But it isn't. It didn't make a difference with the $6, and it's not going to make a difference. I'll make a bet with you. We'll be having this same discussion in 4 years on the 875 because it will not make a difference. At the end of the day, what we are doing, and I have nothing wrong with that because that's what they're doing. They're doing their own business. But at the end of the day, it's going to make Philippines richer. It's going to make Jamaica richer. It's going to make Honduras. It's going to make a lot of countries richer. But you know, Cayman no richer.
Well, again, I thank you for that viewpoint. Certainly, I will agree with you again, and this has never been something we've debated. The introduction of minimum wage will very clearly benefit more of the expatriate working population than it will impact Caymanians. But in my mind, whether it's 2,000 or 2 Caymanians that will receive a direct benefit from this, that is 2 more than it was yesterday, so that's good enough for me. And again, these are my own people on the hustle, on the grind, feeling the pressure. But there's no debate for me in terms of one side clearly benefiting more than the next. But let me ask you, in terms of the foreign national coming to this country and going from 8,000 pesos to earning in CI dollars, isn't that the proverbial American dream that says, listen, persons leave their homes, their place of infant nurture, their family, their comfort zone, and in some cases, like our very own Caymanians, we've been talking about the Seafarers Registry that launched this week, our own forefathers couldn't find work and employment in this place. They had to brave the high seas as young as 15 and 16 and go across and work, quote unquote, foreign to make a living and obviously build their homeland. That was representation of Cayman's first economy. I don't besmirch an individual who, like many of our foreign workers who work in the low minimum wage type jobs, I don't cast shade on any of them for seeking to improve their life in foreign shores.
But hold on a second. Are you suggesting that I'm doing that?
Well, you're suggesting that the money that these foreign workers are earning are going to benefit Cayman. They're going to send it back home.
Yeah.
Right. So
and what did I say about that?
Let me finish.
Okay, go ahead.
Please.
Go ahead.
I didn't interrupt you.
Okay, go ahead.
Please let me finish. So on the one hand, I don't besmirch the foreign national trying to come to Cayman to make their lives better. If it wasn't Cayman, it'll be the U.S. If it wasn't the U.S., it'll be England. If it wasn't England, it'll be Canada. They do this the globe over. And again, they're leaving their comfort zone to come work in a foreign country where in some cases they're all by themselves. So I'm impressed by that, period. Yes, foreign remittances is a big problem in this country. The Jamaicans send more money home, the Filipinos, the Hondurans, every foreign national in large part in the minimum wage, the middle wage earning sector does that. Some of the higher income levels, obviously, again, the white collar workers, you will say, make up that private island that you sometimes criticize, but those persons are taking their earnings, they're putting in their bank accounts because they're avoiding, obviously, taxation, and they're buying property and whatnot. They're excluded from this conversation. But even the small, impoverished foreign worker still pays a work permit fee. That work permit fee, as small as it may be, adds to government revenue in terms of this financial crisis we're facing. And again, in a country that cannot afford to pick, choose, and refuse its valuable revenue sources, people criticize the work permit system for the numbers it generates. But, nobody criticizes it when they want a new road, they want a new hospital, they want a new roof or an expansion of education centers or whatever. That money has to come from somewhere, and regrettably, a part of it comes from the work permit system. Likewise, with cruise people, I still say, don't appreciate the value that cruise represents. Prior to COVID, we were earning close to $500 million in government revenue. As we stand today with the reduction in the cruise industry, we're down to under $300 million. And as this year progresses, and as sure as Jesus saved the saved the sinners, I know that when the cruise lines stop coming to Cayman, that revenue stream is going to further dwindle, and we are going to feel the pinch. But to my point, all revenue streams, no matter how small, are important, and that is how Cayman benefits. So that is my piece on minimum wage.
How much time I have?
You got maybe 2 minutes this time.
Okay, let me just say this. First of all, you just talk about paying permits. I'm not really 100% sure what you meant by that, because let's be clear.
They have to get a work permit to be here.
But it is but hold on. It is the employer who is paying for the work permit.
And who are they paying? Who are they paying?
No.
Who are they paying?
But you just say you don't interrupt me. You just say you don't interrupt me. There is the employer that's paying. And again, this is part of the problem. Assuming it's a legitimate business, the employer is paying for that permit. And don't put my words out of context. I made it abundantly clear. I have no problem with a person coming here, making money, and sending it home. That's why they came here. They came here for either one or two reasons. Something was pushing them out of their country, or something was pulling them here, and or a combination of both. They came here. I have no problem, not besmirching or any other similar word of someone who comes here and goes from 8,000 to May 56. What I am saying is they are benefiting. The guy that you are giving the $495 to, who is living here in this economy, who will now take the same $495 and go pay the increase for the Burger King, go pay the increase at the end of the day
30 seconds.
For the jerk chicken, go pay the increase for the electricity, go pay the increase for the water, has got nothing. And really, at the end of the day, what you've done is just benefited some other country. That is precisely what I'm saying.
All right. Well, thank you very much for that. We obviously are of different views on this subject, but that happens from time to time. 28 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock. We have to pause, take a short commercial break, but keep it locked. There will be more very exciting Straight Talk on a Friday. Who wants to go to the watering hole? You need to be listening to Straight Talk on 103.1.
More Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio coming up. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Bobo 103.1.
With you in mind, we have your style. Find what you need down every aisle. You want saving, selection, and quality. That's why we're your home store. Home store. The way to make a home. The way to make a home.
Hello, pet parents. We're K-Man Vets, K-Man's most advanced veterinary clinic providing quality care and services. We are committed to being your pet's advocate and friend, offering a lifetime of care. From vaccinations and wellness checks to more advanced surgical procedures, complicated medical concerns, and emergency care on demand. For more information about us or to get in touch, please visit kmanvets.com. K-Man Vets, where compassion meets excellence.
The Office Hero. To claim this title, you have to make an exceedingly wise decision. Do something that benefits staff, impresses clients, all while keeping expenses low. Are you ready to be the Office Hero? Here's what to do. Call Hughes Cleaning Service. Hughes Cleaning Service will make your office shine and you a hero. Dusting, vacuuming, windows, sanitizing, and more. Hughes expert cleaners will make your office a healthy, immaculate, impressive workspace. Call 949-0734. Visit hughes-janitorial.com. Hughes, you get more than clean.
Looking for TVs, electronics, sound systems, speakers, gaming consoles, games, and smart home gadgets? Shop Cost You Less.
Looking for housewares, small appliances, fans, mini fridges, and cooling? Shop Cost You Less.
Looking for baby supplies, toys and games, pet supplies, cleaning supplies, and auto supplies? Shop Cost You Less.
Looking for quality produce, grass-fed meats, and groceries? You guessed it. Shop Cost You Less.
Cost You Less is your destination for everything you need on island. Cost You Less. Everyday low prices on items that matter to you.
Shirts, pants, or linens. When you want them clean, just drop them off at Island Cleaners. Island Cleaners is a full-service dry cleaner, meaning you name it, they clean it. Professional shirt service, fluff and fold laundry, and more. Even drape and area rug cleaning and alterations, from quick hem jobs to resizing dresses. Island Cleaners, your one stop for everything clean. Artco Drive off Shedden Road. Ask about VIP and prepaid discounts.
Have your engine driving like never before with Pure 93, the highest pure octane fuel in Cayman, and available exclusively at Rubis service stations. Pure 93 protects against engine knock, restores lost power and acceleration, cleans fuel injectors, intake valves, removes engine deposits, improves your fuel economy, and it meets international specification requirements for your car. Fill up with Pure 93 now and keep your engine running like new. Fuel the difference with Pure 93, available exclusively at Rubis.
Across Cayman on FM, online, and on your smart speaker. This is Bobo 103.1, powered by Health Services Authority, committed to caring for you. The views and opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo 103.1.
And welcome back, man, to more Straight Talk here on Bobo 103.1 FM with your host, Ellio Solomon, myself, Austin Harris. And welcome back to another very exciting Friday discussion. The name on the door says Straight Talk, and that's exactly what you can expect to get here from Straight Talk from both the host perspective. We will continue in all cases to speak our truth, regardless of who it might offend, but certainly not us in studios. Though I want to, as the lawyer would say, Ellio, my learned friend, I would like to redirect the audience to perhaps really who's responsible for this little heated debate in our studios. It's not us. 10 days ago, Michael Myers, as Minister of Labor, made a firm decision. There will be no minimum wage. We don't believe in it. It's not going to happen. We had that discussion and arguably this debate then, but he had closed the door. The issue was done and dusted, kind of like the whole Cruz birthing issue and the referendum. People voted. They said, no, we're over it. We accept it. Leave it in the past. But then today in Parliament, when feeling even the slightest bit of pressure, largely coming from the Honorable Deputy Leader of the Opposition, in a Q&A, the Minister, the Honorable Michael Miles, did an about-face, and instead of rejecting minimum wage, he has now committed his government to introducing it on the 1st of January. I will just simply say there is a lot of water between July 2025 and January 2026. And if this sort of flip-flopping nature is what we can expect from the National Coalition for Caymanians, I suspect this may not be the last time we have had this discussion. But again, I just want to redirect us to how did we get on this subject to begin with? I thought we discussed this already.
From Eminem.
From Eminem, quite
Michael
right.
Miles.
So, yes, Eminem, Michael Miles, indeed. But, we are going to stay with the minister, but for a moment. Certainly those listeners who may have tuned in yesterday would have heard us on the tail end of the show getting a phone call from Parliament, directly from the Deputy Leader of the Opposition, the Honourable Kenneth Bryan, informing us that the minister, Michael Miles, has rejected the NICE annual, in this case, semi-annual cleanup program in the Cayman Islands, and labeled it as an abject failure, and even went so far as to call it a vote-buying mechanism, and suggested that neither will the government move, as the private member's motion sought to do, to make the NICE program year-round, similar to what presently operates on the sister island of Cayman Brac. In that program, they're 3 weeks on, 1 week off. And, whether you like the program or not, what you cannot argue about is that Cayman Brac is a heck of a lot cleaner than Grand Cayman is. But the minister yesterday, according to what was reported to us by the opposition member, suggested that the minister put the kibosh on both the private member's motion, rejected it on behalf of his government. He was the only person to speak on behalf of the government bench. The minister called the leader of the deputy leader of the opposition. Again, I keep seeing the future. Because again, I got to give it to Kenneth Bryan. He certainly barks a heck of a lot more than the present leader of the opposition. So who knows what the future may hold?
Stop getting that young man in problems.
I'm not getting him in problems. I'm just stirring the pot. I got a big pot of turtle stew. I don't want none of it sticking to the bottom. Where was I? So yes, he's certainly fanning the flames. Bryan
raised the issue and he called us yesterday and got us all steamed up right at the end of the program. We couldn't finish it.
He did. And in fairness, because again, having been a politician ourselves, we accept the fact that politicians oftentimes, much like that conversation as it related to, the former work permit holder that then married a Caymanian for 7 years but got arrested for overstaying, albeit he was married from a Caymanian. Sometimes you got to ask yourself, am I being told the whole story? And particularly when dealing with politicians who are obviously going to spin just about everything to their benefit. We wanted to make sure and do our due diligence so that no one could say we're being misled into this conversation. And maybe Mr. Miles didn't say that, or as we say in this town, it didn't go so. So we went back and listened to last night's proceedings. And in this segment, we are going to change gears. And first of all, we're going to share firsthand account comments that emanated from yesterday's opposition day in Parliament, where, again, the private member's motion moved by the leader of the deputy leader of the opposition, calling for the nice cleanup program to be made an annual program. This was the honorable minister's response on behalf of his government. We're going to let it run, and then we're going to provide some commentary on it. So let's have a listen.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for giving me this opportunity to respond to the motion. I thank the member for Georgetown Central for his contribution. Mr. Speaker, I have worked in education for the past 15 years, and I've also worked in social development, focusing on at-risk youth and children and their families for the past 35 years. I want to be clear where the government stands on this particular program, but also this motion. The motion is not proposing a laudable objective of implementing a comprehensive training program that will prepare Caymanians to assume the almost 40,000 jobs created in our economy that's performed by work permit holders. Instead, Mr. Speaker, the motion is proposing that many of our currently unemployed people should be relegated to being employed through the NICE program, which is not equivalent to a full-time job, with the normal employment benefits, health insurance, and a pension plan. Now, Mr. Speaker, I want to examine this a second. The member alluded to the Kim and Brock model. Let's talk about that model. We have folks that have been in our program, some of them a decade. They still haven't gotten full-time employment. They have no health care benefits, so in the event that they're sick, the Department of Financial Assistance, which is our country, still have to help them. Many of these people are getting older, nearing retirement, and they have no retirement plan. So their retirement plan currently, and I'm hoping that the member will agree to this, is the Cayman Islands government. This is not our plan going forward. The NICE program is nothing more than a Band-Aid, Mr. Speaker. Expanding it represents an insult to the Caymanian people and a failure on our part to have a program that supports employment and a transition into normal workforce. Mr. Speaker, I want to make sure that our members in this honorable House understand. I've worked in training and development for the last 8 years, where I ran my own company, and I've had the privilege of working in training with a number of people who were in the NICE program. They were handicapped by this program. The moment an employer saw NICE on their resumes, they could not get employment. We had to help them clean up their resumes, give them the required skills in order to ensure that they were employable. So creating this program in the Cayman Islands or Grand Cayman, it is not what our government will be supporting. In my view, it has been a missed opportunity for the past 15 years of its existence to invest in something more meaningful, Mr. Speaker, to our country. What this motion intends to do is kick the can of Caymanian training and employment opportunities further down the road. Our government is saying absolutely not. Mr. Speaker, many of us are maybe familiar with the faces of people who have traditionally participated in the NICE program, and these have often been people who find the normal workforce challenging or have unfortunately abused themselves in certain ways. The really concerning thing for me, Mr. Speaker, is that there's now an observing as I drive around, and I take the time to drive around to view the folks who are in the NICE program. The participants in this program are younger, many of them 17 and 18 years old, who will be handicapped by this program if we pour more money in it. The program, Mr. Speaker, is not designed, based on what the member says, it's not designed to train up anyone. It is simple as that. A program that pays people $10 to pick up garbage on the road. Mr. Speaker, there's no Caymanian parent in our country, and I challenge anyone in this humble house to ask any of them, who will say that their child is aspiring to be trained or work in a NICE program. I'm also confident that any member of this honorable house can go to any school in this country and ask any child if they aspire to be part of the NICE program, and that answer will be hell no. The NICE program has not and will never address the root causes that prevent Caymanians from pursuing the required upskilling and reskilling that leads to full-time employment. Mr. Speaker, what this motion proposes is that our people don't deserve full-time employment with health care benefits, pension plan, vacation and sick benefits, that they deserve to be unemployed for long periods of time. Mr. Speaker, I ask the question to the mover and the supporter of this motion, are they saying that the best jobs our people deserve is sweeping the streets, painting sidewalks, and cleaning up graveyards? Mr. Speaker, I believe in working hard because I have done that all my life. But I also believe that the NICE program is nothing more than a vote-buying program. Mr. Speaker, I'm proposing, however, if this motion is proposing that our people is designated to sweeping the streets and painting sidewalks and cleaning up graveyards, then we are aiming wide of the mark that we should be focused on. Our people must be prioritized for upskilling and reskilling to work in some of the better jobs that are occupied by work permit holders that come with employment benefits. Mr. Speaker, I would have been more impressed by the motion that encouraged the training of Caymanians to take the 650 plus jobs that will be created by the Grand Hyatt, which will be coming online in January of 2026. The previous government approved 100% waiver duties up to an aggregate sum of $8,715,000 to Paget Beach Hotel, aka Grand Hyatt, and its designated subcontractors. Yet, after meeting with the organization, not one plan has been put in place to employ Caymanians. It is concerning. Mr. Speaker, our government will be investing in upskilling and reskilling our people to be employed in the civil service that has many departments, the healthcare industry, which is booming in our country, the construction industry, because if they can paint sidewalks, they can certainly do construction, the landscaping industry, which is what our member that just provided a caption of the NICE program could be made to do. Our people can certainly do landscaping. Why not have benefits attached to it? And the restaurant business, in which we are by far experiencing some of the best restaurants in the world. Mr. Speaker, Caymanians will not qualify for a mortgage working in the NICE program, and it doesn't matter how much we pretty this program up. They will not get a mortgage. The Minister of Finance have just informed me that this program would cost us a whopping $20 million. Now let's talk about this figure a second. Because if we can pay $20 million for this program that provides no training, no employment, no health care benefits, no pension benefits, no vacation benefits, And if a person gets sick, they still need to go to DFA, the Department of Financial Assistance, to claim some sort of welfare. What are we paying for? We're paying for a program to just say that the government is doing something that all of us in this room could say to one of our constituents, go work for a welfare program? Not on our watch, Mr. Speaker.
And there you have it. Those were the words from the only respondent to the private member's motion on behalf of the government, the Honorable Minister of Labor, Michael Miles, on the subject of the NICE cleanup program. Rejecting it, calling it an abject failure, referring to it as a mechanism for vote buying, and having what sounds to me as only disdain for those who might otherwise participate in it. You heard it in his voice, even maybe perhaps with a bit of a chuckle, were the sentiments. These sentiments, they say silence implies assent. He was the only person to speak on behalf of the government. When the vote came, the government rejected the motion. At the time, the member for Georgetown Central, the deputy leader of the opposition, called for a division. All members present in the House at the time voted yay on the side of, or nay, I think what the case would be. Do you support the motion? They voted it down, with only one member of government being absent from the chamber at the time of the vote, that being the Honorable Minister for Planning Infrastructure, the MP for Northside, the Honorable J. Ebanks. And obviously, some significant comments. You may have heard there some of the shock and awe and comments coming from across the aisle, though a bit muffled. But I promise you, if you watch the proceedings, this debate prompted a number of shocked feelings, and certainly not just in Parliament, from us too, as both former members, but as talk show hosts. And like minimum wage, we both have opinions on it. Ellio, with give or take plus 10 minutes, I started off with you.
I'm not sure how much I'm going to take, but I suspect it might go beyond 10 minutes.
Not a problem. Good thing we have at least another half an hour to look forward to on the opposite end.
Yeah, but first of all, I think in relation to this, I believe it is important to give a little bit of background, particularly on the program, particularly for those persons who may not have had the opportunity to listen to all the debates and might remember, may have got the best of them in relation to the history of it. But if we go back from time, I was in office between 2009 and 2013. This is when the first cleanup program actually started. And it started because, as persons will remember, we were just coming out of a major financial crisis, global financial crisis. And amongst other things, the government at the time had a deficit. You've heard now that there's the pre-food saying that they might expect a deficit in this year of 26 million. That's one of the projections. Well, at that time, the deficit that we inherited was $80 million. So suffice it to say, there were some very serious economic challenges. And one of the ideas that had been raised at that point in time, considering that there were hundreds, if not thousands of people that were unemployed, was to have this cleanup program that would at least give persons an opportunity, particularly around Christmas time and New Year's, to be able to earn a couple of dollars, to be able to put a little food on the table and to buy gifts for their family for Christmas. So it was again held in December and again in January. That was when that program started. It was called the Pride Cleanup, because again, it was about focusing on giving people pride in the country, giving pride in themselves, knowing that they weren't going to be going down to the Department of Children and Family Services. They weren't going to NAU or DFA or whatever other TLA they want to use. It was an asking for a handout. They were simply saying, give me an opportunity to work. So Mr. Bryan, the deputy leader of the opposition, has now raised the suggestion that this program should be extended for an entire year as it is being done in the BRAC. Now, I'm not going to argue the merits and demerits of whether it should be extended for a year. I think the bottom line that I see that he's getting at is that even more so now, there are people out there that require some sort of at least minimum temporary assistance. The first things that jump out at me when I listen to Minister Miles, and I do want to give him a little bit of leeway And I say leeway considering that, yes, he's a new person in Parliament. I'm going to also stress as well that the gentleman that I know in terms of Minister Miles, I haven't known him very long and, not too great. But from the little bit that I know, he has been doing a lot of things in the community in relation to helping persons out, like vocational training. And he had the skate and rink or something like that.
Yeah, part of his Inspire Cayman program.
So I want to put all those things to make sure that there's some level of balance inside of here. And I want to give him the benefit of the doubt that he's a new person and he might also just be very much, eager to get certain things done. I take all of those things into calculation. But I can't help but to recognize how contemptuous he came across as he spoke about the cleanup program. Almost like, as you would say, blatant disregard for the program. It served no purpose. We are wasting our times to even be discussing this. And again, coming in from the minimum wage discussion that we just had, I find this at odds. That you're saying that you're going to make this entire economy, put it in an inflationary position because there's 2,000 people that are suffering who needs to make $495 more per month. But yet at the same time, on the other side of your mouth, you're saying that I don't think that we should give an opportunity to some of the same people, who were trying to supplement their wages by joining in the Christmas program and the New Year's program to give them an opportunity to make $800 or $1,000. No, that does not make any sense to me. Again, I will highlight the fact that he talks about the program being something that's a vote buying exercise. And this is something else that politicians, in my humble opinion, continue to abuse their parliamentary privileges. I'll never forget that there was a lady married to a gentleman from West Bay. And I remember how you had politicians that would stand and defame this lady as far as I'm concerned, but they were allowed to get away with it because in Parliament you have these parliamentary privileges where you are allowed to say certain things even if it's defamatory. And it's there for a good reason. Because if I'm there to debate a particular company, let's say CUC, et cetera, if I am to concern myself with all of the legalities of it, it will hamper my free speech in order to represent my people. So they give you these parliamentary privileges, not to be abused, but to be used. And I say that because if he's going to make the allegation that the cleanup program was and is or will be nothing but a vote buying exercise, especially if he's saying it's something present and or past. I want the Minister Miles to know, as far as I'm concerned, at least under the anti-corruption law, I think he has an obligation to report it and to have it investigated. Because if there's someone who is engaging in corruption or has engaged in corruption when it comes to the cleanup program, I think it should be investigated and those persons should be dealt with as a matter of fact under the law. But you're not going to get that because, again, that is the politics of it. It is about simply being able to defame it, disparage the program without recognizing any merits of it. And that shows, in my humble opinion, an imbalance in his mind. So when he continues to make those disparaging remarks, I think it only speaks negative. But again, I'm going to challenge him. If it is a vote buying thing, go ahead, report it, and have it dealt with under the law. The other thing I want to draw to the public's attention, notice the things that he says, are we trying to say that this is the only thing that our Caymanian people can do? Ladies and gentlemen, again, this is where you are taking something out of context. Nobody's saying that. Nobody has ever stated that the Caymanian people should be inspiring to become a part of the NICE program. So why are you even uttering that nonsense? But you say this to try to invoke emotions in a way that is going to aid you and go in the currency of your direction to say, listen, let's reject that NICE program. No. The other thing he's trying to suggest it was only young persons. I can remember when I was doing the cleanup program, it was well over 800 persons involved in the cleanup program. And there was a lot of elderly persons. Naturally, I won't call their names, but there was one gentleman that I remember, for example, who used to work in one of the banks when I was a younger man. This is an older man than me. Interesting, he was willing to come out and clean up because he needed the money. There was an ex-police officer there. again, willing to come out because they clearly needed the money. And these are persons that, again, don't want to have to go down to the NAU or whatever the departments are, the TLAs, because they keep changing, but simply want to be able to work, even if it's for a couple of days or a couple of weeks, to be able to earn some money. And so, ladies and gentlemen, when you look at all those, I see you looking at that. Tell me what the time is. Time check.
1 minute, 5 seconds.
Okay, good. I got more to go. So when you look at that, I want to dismiss the whole idea that it's only young persons, as if there's only people out there that might be young and smoking dope or doing something, banging their heads against the wall, something happening. Okay. There's a lot of respectable people that I have saw personally engage in the cleanup program. And I remember, and I take a real issue with his statement about the vote buying, because I remember when I was doing it and I had to run to Treasury, I had to wait because there were people pretty much
30 seconds.
People pretty much rioting, if you like, waiting for their checks at the bank. I remember also being accused of the vote buying. So I'll pause, and when we come back from the break, then we'll discuss it.
Outstanding. Well, we are obviously chewing through the comments made by Minister Michael Miles in obviously rejecting the nice summer cleanup. But we do need to pause, check in with the top of the hour news brought to you by the BBC. But keep it locked. There'll be more Straight Talk still to come right here on Bobo 103.1 FM.
Bobo.
BBC News. BBC News. World news from the BBC. Violent clashes. Thick black smoke.
A tremendous legal victory.
Crucial elections.
Destructive wind.
A search and recovery operation.
A race against time.
An imminent threat. Flying a drone over a rival team's training session.
Whatever is happening, wherever it's happening, catch up with the latest news bulletins from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
The BBC's From Our Own Correspondent.
In today's Russia, no one is allowed anywhere near the political stage if they pose a serious challenge to Vladimir Putin.
Stories and reflections from our reporters around the world.
There is a major sense of insecurity here.
More people are coming in from Sudan every day.
From Our Own Correspondent from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
How can we understand the world better?
The BBC World Service is a window onto the wider world.
The vantage point from which to survey a new horizon.
News, reports, and analysis from around the world.
Stories we think matter.
Different people from different societies.
We get to the heart of global issues.
News, stories, and global perspectives from the BBC World Service.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM. This is Bobo 103.1, powered by Health Services Authority.
At Health Services Authority, they are committed to caring for you. They are Cayman's largest and longest-standing healthcare provider, offering the most comprehensive range of inpatient, outpatient, and public health services at 9 different locations across all 3 islands.
Across Cayman on 103.1 FM, online, and on your smart speaker. The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo 103.1.
BBC News, I'm John Shea. The foreign ministers of the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda have signed a peace deal, seen as a first step towards ending a conflict that has simmered for 30 years. The agreement, brokered by the US and Qatar, comes after the M23 rebels seized swathes of eastern Congo. The US President Donald Trump called it a historic agreement beginning a new chapter of hope. The BBC's Bernd de Busman is in Washington.
There was very little in the way of detail about what the U.S. role will be in actually implementing these peace deals. President Trump made a rather vague statement that the U.S. would kind of enforce this and take action if they believe either side were infringing on the peace deal. But more than that, I think the White House also really wants President Trump to be seen as a peacemaker, and that's something that's eluded him so far in Ukraine and in Gaza.
President Trump has said he's breaking off trade negotiations with Canada immediately. He blamed the collapse of talks on Canada's digital service tax, which targets big tech companies. He said he would announce new tariffs on Canadian exports within a week. Speaking to reporters in the Oval Office, Mr. Trump said Canada had been a very difficult country to deal with.
They put a
charged, and they were a little bit early. We found out about it. So, and we have all the cards. We have every single one. They have, economically, we have such power over Canada. I'd rather not use it, but they did something with our tech companies today trying to copy Europe. You know, they copied Europe. It's not going to work out well for Europe either, and it's not going to work out well for Canada.
In a highly significant ruling, the US Supreme Court has curbed the power of federal judges to block presidential orders nationwide. The case stems from Mr. Trump's bid to end birthright citizenship for the children of undocumented immigrants. He hailed the 6-3 decision as a giant win. Here's our North America correspondent, Nomia Iqbal.
What the Supreme Court had to answer was, does one judge or any judges have the power to block an executive order put out by the president that affects the whole of the country? And in a Conservative majority, the Supreme Court ruled no. So for President Trump, who loves to govern by executive order, it is a victory. What it means for all the other orders that he's put through and are going through the courts, we're not quite sure.
Israel's Prime Minister has rejected an Israeli newspaper report in which soldiers say they were ordered to shoot at unarmed civilians waiting for food aid in Gaza. Benjamin Netanyahu said the Haaretz newspaper had committed blood libel against the most moral military in the world. One unnamed soldier described firing on crowds near a distribution centre run by the US-backed Gaza Humanitarian Foundation with everything imaginable. World News from the BBC. The head of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation has sought to defend its aid delivery operation in the face of growing international outrage. Johnny Moore claimed the UN and other international organisations were spreading information they couldn't verify. But Stefan Dujarric, spokesman for the UN Secretary-General, said the UN system for aid delivery was better.
The UN operates without any armed protection. Our protection is the community. We try to deliver food to the people. We try to help the community kitchens. This is a system that works. Funneling people through barbed wire into militarized food distribution system is clearly not working.
Kenya's Human Rights Commission says the number of people killed during protests on Wednesday has risen to 19. 15 others are missing. Thousands of demonstrators voiced their anger with President William Ruto's government and demanded an end to police brutality. Many of those protesting chanted "Ruto must go" and waved branches as a symbol of peaceful opposition to his rule. The Anglican Archbishop of Wales has announced his retirement with immediate effect. The decision by Andrew John, who is also Bishop of Bangor, follows reports that the culture at Bangor Cathedral in North Wales was one of blurred sexual boundaries, excessive alcohol consumption and weaknesses in safeguarding procedures. There's no suggestion that the Archbishop himself behaved inappropriately. Stepson of Norway's Crown Prince is being accused of 23 crimes, including rape, after a 10-month police investigation. 28-year-old Marius Borg Høiby is the son of Crown Princess Mette-Marit, but doesn't have a royal title. His lawyer said his client did not acknowledge any wrongdoing in most of the cases, especially those regarding sexual abuse and violence. BBC News.
Opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo 103.1.
And welcome back, hey man, to more Straight Talk here on Bobo 103.1 FM and simulcasting live over YouTube and Facebook with the key search words Straight Talk Radio Show. Welcome back. We're your host, Ellio Solomon, myself, Austin Harris. And the phone lines remain open on this Open Mic Friday. 745-2626 is the number to call, or you can reach out to us on our WhatsApp number, 928-2562. Or if you want to send an email, you can email us at host@straighttalk.ky. It is 7 minutes past the hour, 6 o'clock time in studios as we Again, prior to the break, if you just tuned in, well, where were you? We just played almost 10 full minutes of Minister Michael Miles offering up his comments as to what he thinks of the nice cleanup that runs, or used to run, up until yesterday, twice a year in the Cayman Islands. Can't say he offered very flattering remarks, and some would argue perhaps even the responses were rather naive for the freshman MP and now Minister of Government. But of course, my colleague was sharing his feedback on that issue. But if I can just take us back for a moment. Ooh, what happened? Hang on. My WhatsApp just decided to shut down. Let's take it again. It must have knew what I was going to do, pay you a compliment. We got a compliment from a member of the listening audience, taking us back to our previous discussion on minimum wage, which says, Austin, it's all politics. But Ellio is so right. Austin, you have some good points also, but overall, we all will pay more when this minimum wage is introduced. So a feather in your cap, Mr. Solomon, for at least one of our listeners agreeing with your position.
Yeah.
The floor is yours to either comment on the WhatsApp message or to continue your remarks.
I'll just say
the nice cleanup program.
I'll just say quickly, thank the author for the comments. Greatly appreciate it. And we'll continue that discussion another day, I am sure. But on this particular thing, I want to assure persons that a lot of people that was involved in this cleanup program were very respectable people. These were people that as a younger man, I'm looking up to them. And I will also stress, without calling the name, that one of the persons who were also employed in that cleanup program, who did a sterling job as well, was actually one of our now most successful ministers, doing a very good job, was involved in the cleanup program. And surely you can't look at a person like that and say they just want to skive off. There were persons who, any one of us, need to understand that we could be one paycheck away from simply needing $1. And the level of disdain that this man spoke with is just totally amazing. I can't believe you would speak like that. Show some balance and respect for the people that are simply trying to make an honest living regardless of how they can make it, without looking at them in such a negative and contemptuous way. What I would have expected from the minister would have been to say, if he thinks the NICE program is not good enough, take on board where I believe he wants to take the country, then say I want to advance it. I want to have it where we can not just have them painting or cleaning or whatever. I want to enhance on it. I want to do X, Y, and Z. But to be that dismissive and contemptuous, and again, even to put allegations of vote buying, etc., to me is very discouraging. Continuing on, I also want to compliment the leader of the opposition, who I think gave a wonderful speech. Again, I think holding the minister accountable for these contemptuous comments and statements that he made. And of course, as a stroke of genius and very strategic, he also asked, that some member of the government would get up and comment on what the minister had said, hoping that they would say or do something a little differently. But the silence in that room, ladies and gentlemen, was deafening. And as the saying goes, silent means consent. The fact that they sit there means at the end of the day, they must be in agreement completely, entirely with what the member is saying. If at the minimum for political expediency, they were willing to keep their mouth quiet. The Minister of Finance was a member of the government when I was there that first introduced the prior cleanup program. I surely would have expected him to say something about it. But again, there was silence in the room. Crickets, Mr. Harris, crickets. And again, I want to thank, again, the honorable leader, the deputy leader of the opposition as well, again, for raising it. I think he had a good debate. And of course, for calling the division so that we could get all of the nuts and bolts, so that nobody could hide and understand who was it that was supportive of these contemptuous remarks that was actually being made. And of course, we understand that Minister J was missing. I thank God he was missing. And quite frankly, I'd like to believe it was a strategic absence. It was a strategic absence is how I'm going to infer it. And if it is, then I compliment him for his strategic absence of not being involved and partaking in such nonsense. But I'm going to just end by saying, ladies and gentlemen, what I'm seeing is someone at the minimum being contemptuous, disdainful, and clearly not understanding what the issues are on the ground. And it doesn't make sense what I'm seeing offered for minimum wage, where you're trying to get a minimum wage that's going to give a $495 increase for 2,000 people. But at the same time, you're defecating all over the fact that somebody can sit and at least work for now on the Christmas and the New Year and make $800. Doesn't make sense. I yield. You have the floor, Mr. Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Solomon. Certainly a number of thought-provoking remarks, and I thank you for sharing them. And let me just say that unlike the minimum wage discussion, we are not in disagreement in terms of certainly our response and certainly viewpoint to the remarks shared by the Honourable Minister for Labour, Honourable Michael Miles, MP for Prospect. And again, it's really hard to follow such a comprehensive response that you made because, again, many of your points, like I say, all of your points I agree with, but I will make a hopefully short and concise response in that vein. First of all, it never ceases to amaze me how quickly we forget what it's like to be poor. You know, the minister has been a member of government and not just a first-time MP, but has elevated himself to the lofty position of minister, and that with it carries a very, very pleasant, one would say, monthly salary. He's been in office, 2 months, has received 2 months of salary, and already he has lost the ability to identify or be empathetic to the struggles of the man on the grind, the little man who is struggling, and again, oftentimes just to put food on the table. That is very disappointing, to say the least. But to your point, this viewpoint cannot be leveled just at Minister Miles, but arguably at his entire government, who other members failed to disagree or take a different position, but instead provided him through their silence with a tacit support. To your point, no one aspires to work for the nice annual cleanup. Certainly not our younger Caymanians, and certainly arguably none of our Caymanians. But there's a saying, I used to have it on a tie back in another life when I used to wear ties to work. It said, life is what happens to you when you're busy making other plans. Unfortunately, to your point, any one of us could be one paycheck away from poverty in this country. The fortunes tend to swing so violently from east to west, and it could happen to any of us. So don't kid yourself for a moment that this couldn't be us. Another hurricane could come like the size of Ivan and knock us for six and take away everything we own. And again, that includes our livelihood, our ability to have a job and earn money. Yep. But I promise you, if our homes are mortgaged, the banks won't care, and they will still require their monthly bills. So you could be homeless, broke, destitute, or on the street tomorrow. Anybody. And again, it is just simply arrogant to believe that that is not the case. But I will say for Caymanians, because I am one, Caymanians are proud people. And many Caymanians, again, I spent 4 years as the parliamentary secretary, shared responsibility for the Needs Assessment Unit, the Department of Children and Family Services, and arguably some responsibility, though shared with the Minister of Infrastructure and Works, who is now the leader of the opposition, who had responsibility for the annual cleanup. So I know the people who are applying for work on the twice yearly cleanup, many of whom came from my former constituency of Prospect. I know them personally. And these are persons of all ages, all Caymanians, all prideful, all having a real hard time asking for help, and certainly do not want a handout from you or government or anybody. And at least the NICE program enables those Caymanians, and they are Caymanians, by the way, all of them, to at least earn a little money to put food on their table, or at Christmas time buy a little present for the grandchildren, and maintain their dignity while doing so. All of these points the minister clearly rejects, does not recognize, or, as I said before, has forgotten already, now that he is, quote unquote, in the money. Also, I have to say how quickly those promises that were made during the not so distant election campaign that undoubtedly professed their desire to assist the poor man, those persons on the grind, those persons on the hustle. If you vote for me, a vote for me will mean an improvement in your life and your ability and your earning. Again, those campaign promises have been quickly forgotten by the statements made by the minister again yesterday in Parliament, how quickly the pendulum swings to the opposite side again. The minister spoke about the spend, and in this respect, he was assisted almost joyfully by the present Minister of Finance, who provided him with the details, presumably to support the argument that he was making when he suggested that, well, the cost of this program would cost the taxpayer $20 million. Now, I want to examine that for a moment. $20 million in what is anticipated to be a over $500 million spending budget is a drop in the bucket. And it's a drop in the bucket because in the case of the nice cleanup, only Caymanians or persons with Cayman status or regularized as Caymanians, including RARC individuals, can apply to participate in the NICE program, just like NAU. You know, like it or lump it, only Caymanians receive that assistance. And again, it is Caymanians as defined by the current law, not as we would like it. If you don't like the laws, I always say change it, and may very well will happen in the course of this 4 years. But only Caymanians benefit. So in the view of this government, $20 million is too much money to help Caymanians on the struggle who want to maintain their dignity by cleaning up the country of their birth that they love and receive what some may consider small money. Again, I find that to be an insult to Caymanians so closely on the heels of a national election. And I will end on this note. The minister stated, and clearly suggesting his government agrees, that what we should be doing is getting our Caymanians employed. Nobody disagrees with that. Nobody disagrees with that. But there's an old saying that says a promise is a comfort to a fool. The minister says, instead of the NICE cleanup, which is a vote-buying mechanism, and to your point, certainly if that is the case and you're, suggesting corruption, perhaps you might want to take the case further up the line.
Well, the ACL actually makes it he's obligated to do so.
He is obligated
You're committing an offense. If you know of something, by the way, sorry to interrupt.
No.
If you know of an offense in this particular case that it is vote buying, I want to make sure and let him know. The ACL, the anti-corruption law, makes it an obligation to which you are subject to fines and imprisonment if you don't report it.
Indeed. And he is the holder of the highest office in the land. So, again, thank you very much for that. So he has an obligation to do so. But, just this week and not last week, we were talking about campaign financing and talking about, electioneering spending. And, yes, on paper, the PPM admitted to spending more than all of the other parties, but also recognize that the spending only matters from nomination day to election day. It discounts the fact that the two other, if not three other groups participating in the election, may have raised their war chest long before then. And it's certainly not surprising if you remember how events unraveled. The PPM, let's face it, struggled to find members. So they were on the back leg from the start. Whereas neither the CCP, which will take out the T, or the CINP struggled with. They knew who their candidates were from day one.
Correct.
And arguably, if the election expenditure was open, honest, transparent, and truly fair, you will find that
who spent the real money.
Who spent the real money.
Correct.
And, we'll talk about the street and we'll talk about, innuendos about, buying votes, because as there is every election cycle, every person criticizes would-be politicians on the campaign trail for buying that vote, for not earning it, legitimately. And there were similar allegations this time around. I know, as a matter of fact, from individuals who contested the election, but perhaps, had discussions. And again, the reasonable-minded would-be politician, he embraces all of his choices. So before making a final decision, he keeps an open mind and talks to all the groups. There were persons talking to some of the groups other than the PPM who were given promises that they would be given $100,000 up front if they would join the party, one or the other, simply by just making the choice. Again, all of these decisions happened before March the 4th. And again, I know these individuals, they've said so directly, but they will remain nameless because it doesn't matter anymore.
No, all kind of $1 million deals.
But if we are talking about corruption, and to my colleague's point, with the minister having an obligation, if he's aware of corruption, he has an obligation under the law to tell somebody. It doesn't just apply to the NICE program. But back to this, a promise is a comfort to a fool. The minister has said what we should be focusing on, and what those participants in the NICE program should be focusing on is the 620 or so jobs that will come online for Caymanians when the new Grand Hyatt opens its doors.
Mm-hmm.
Again, a promise is a comfort to a fool. We have heard this same tired old yarn when the Kimpton first opened, when the Indigo first opened, when the Ritz first opened. And tell me, did Caymanians fill those jobs? No. And if they did fill those jobs, what jobs did they fill? Did they fill the forward-facing, customer-facing jobs? No. Did they fill some of the sales jobs or the executive management offices jobs, earning middle income to maybe upper to middle income wages? No. Where were they placed? They were placed in beach attendants. They were placed in housekeeping. They were placed in back of the house, arguably, as we just discussed, minimum wage positions, but buried in the back of these hotels where you have visitors coming to this country asking the obvious question. Why? Where are all the Caymanians? Mm-hmm. I don't see Caymanians anywhere, least of all in my hotel. You think this is by accident? But again, to get their development granted and to convince the government and the politicians to, put their stamp of approval, we'll say there's 600, 700, making 1,000 jobs for Caymanians. But promising something and making that something happen are two very different things. So I am disgusted, as you, in the minister's comments. I am disappointed by his disconnection between the man on the street and certainly the challenges that they face as compared to perhaps his lofty position. And I'm also equally surprised by the shortness of time in which this happened, because to your point, here's a man who worked with the downtrodden. Here's a man who tried to uplift fellow Caymanians. And I can only be proud of his former life and what he did. It is admirable. And I would have expected with that background, he would be, if anything, empowered to further those lifelong objectives and goals and career viewpoints, and even more so as Minister of Labor. I had lofty ambitions for this minister. But hearing his views, and again, to your point, silence implies assent, the views of the wider government, I am very, very, very disappointed. And that is all we can say on the subject. We have a caller on the line. Let's go to the phone lines. Good evening, caller. You're on the air.
I said they go about vote buying. That one of two districts in the island, I heard when the election was going on, vote buying wasn't going on, so they should investigate that. I plan it wouldn't get elected if it wasn't for big bucks flying like toilet paper. Mm-hmm. So I don't know how they could say that about the Polish people that trying to call it, but boy, I tell you, corruption is flying in the air. Yeah. Because only two districts, and I know plenty of them, because big bucks were passing out, and certain ones wouldn't have been elected if it wasn't for buying votes.
Yes. Caller, thank you very much. Greatly appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you very much for your comment and feedback. Another comment coming from WhatsApp. Gentlemen, I've always wondered about the NICE program. Aren't those roles already handled by full-time government workers? Minister Miles said the listing NICE on a resume can sometimes hurt more than help. Instead of dismissing that, maybe we should ask the HR community. He spent much of his career trying to get Caymanians trained and employed, so this perspective has weight. I once interviewed someone who turned down a job because they needed to participate in the NICE program first. They were willing to pass up long-term work for a 2-week gig. That says a lot. It's worth a serious discussion. Well, again, I could perhaps offer up commentary on that comment itself. As I'm sure my colleague.
Well, first thing I want to say there is, I mean, seriously, I can't really imagine right now off the top of my head why anyone would be including NICE as a part of their resume, quite honestly, because that argument sounds quite ludicrous to me, but I'm pretty sure that the Goodland minister would be able to produce as much evidence for that as he can for the vote buying. But I would think that NICE has always been a temporary measure. And this would be, again, whether it was the police or whether it's the banker or whether it's the now minister, that would be something temporary that you did to survive, not something you're listing on your resume that you believe is going to help you get a job. So I'm not sure what person would actually do that, but it doesn't remove the fact of the things that we have just discussed. And again, I think Mr. Joey Hew, the leader of the opposition, made another very good point. And we are going to be sitting here because the proof is going to be in the pudding, because it definitely seems from the level of disdain thrown out by the minister, and equally considering the fact that he talked about what he wants to do. Let's have that confidence in him. And as the leader of the opposition says, we'll be watching over the next 4 years. At the end of the 4 years, we should have no unemployment. Everything is resolved. I think he also jovially suggested that, what am I going to be telling all my constituents when they come with problems? That you're going to put them in a database. So either way, ladies and gentlemen, like I said, I think that if you look at it, the comments that were made by the minister in relation to NICE is not balanced. And I just want to encourage, again, I try my best to open up things for him. He might just be very passionate about it. He's new. He wants to get in there and get something done. And like ourselves, Austin, I'm pretty sure that he will very quickly learn some of the discouraging things that will happen when your own colleagues are not there for you. But I wish him all the best, and let's see what he does with employment over the next 4 years.
Last comment, where there is no vision, the people perish. Good luck to the new coalition. They're going to need it. That's all the time we have for you this Friday. Have a great weekend, and be sure to tune in to more Straight Talk on Monday at 4:30 here on Bobo FM.
The home of the BBC World Service, the most trusted news source in the world. This is Bobo 103.1.